But when they've swollen that big, you have to cut them. When they're swollen that big, you have to cut them off. But they make actually you can scoop them out, fill them with sausage meat, and they're really tasty. You're listening to the Beat Motel Podcast, and we need to warn you that we like to use words like fuck, shit, and syndiclus, bunty scrotux, angry flap, and film biscuits. And we don't often bleep those words out, apart from because we're not complete animals. But if you understand that and you like music, then listen on. I can see myself on your screen. I can point at myself. Hey, this is Beat Motel. I am Andrew Culture. And Dr. Sam is back from his weeks of top secret work for the elite metal band of Sonic Troubadours.
It's all gone a bit wrong. I think they ended up having riots in England after I left.
After you left?
Yeah.
Your calming influence left the country and it all just went to shit.
It seemed like in a weird way a more relaxed place than it was last time I visited it.
It's because everyone's indoors sharpening sticks.
It's true. But also, like, there's an aspect of, like, looking at newspapers and not going, oh, for fuck's sake. It's like the issues facing the government are more like, oh, this is pretty comfortingly terrible bullshit again. Rather than, oh, Jesus Christ, what the fuck are they doing?
Well, it's kind of nice that the focus is on the government doing something positive and
trying to do something.
Not being the problem. We've had so many years of Tory rule where you're just like, it's just like watching a dumpster fire that turned into molten lava, that went nuclear, that somehow split the moon in two, that caused a rift in the space. It just got worse and worse and worse. With like Boris Johnson, we were like, well, this can't get any worse. How wrong we were. But this is a music podcast, believe it or not.
Sure.
But I've got nothing. I was hoping you'd kind of chip in then.
No, I was wondering where you were going. No.
Let's have your riff of the week, and then we'll reveal our topic. It's a stonker.
Strutting my way on over to you. You like the strut? I like yours too. Strutting my way on over to you.
Just when you sent that, who is that? Tell us who it is and tell us why you chose it.
As an American band called Thumpasaurus, and the song is called Struttin'.
With an apostrophe at the end.
With an apostrophe, yeah. The video is great. If you enjoy men's butt cheeks, particularly if you like that sort of thing, watch it. And they've got. You can hear a load of. In other stuff they recorded, you can hear a load of sort of. My friend said immediately, "Oh, that's Sparks," you know.
Ah, okay.
Yeah. But they also do, there's also Bowie-ish moments and there's a lot of disco and they do their own thing and they do it with like a wink in a way that I was surprised that they weren't Australian because they sound so musically, like there's something sort of quite quirky going on in Australia at the moment. They've produced quite a lot of interesting stuff in the last few years and they just seem to have sort of not a very American sense of humor. It was sort of like, there's one lyric in the song where he says, "I'll walk in front of you. You can objectify, but don't go too far."
You're fair enough. I played it to my wife, and she loved it. And it turns out a lot of people know it. So in conversation with other people, Thumpasaurus do appear to be pretty well known, and that song, it gets the kind of response where people just go, "I fucking love that,"
Yeah.
And I've heard it a few times now, and it's not getting on my tits yet. So it's
Well, I mean, it is by far the most instant thing I would say they've done, but they've also got a lot of other great stuff. But I'm surprised by that because I mean they came up on my I've heard about this through Tidal, and I mean it's like if you look at YouTube, the biggest Strutting is by far the biggest song. It's 4.4 million. The next song down is, a few 100,000.
that's quite a leap or quite a drop, isn't it?
Yeah, and so and I was looking at. There's not that much on. They haven't been reviewed by that many people and all this, and so it sort of surprises me how well that they were known. But it does strike me there is like that internet viral hit aspect to it. I mean, frankly, my 4-year-old loved it so much. He was running around my mum's flat with my mobile phone, listening to it, dancing, just going crazy. It was
Brilliant.
one of the nicest moments of the summer.
What did your mum make of the video? She
She
had
did-
ass
oh,
cheeks?
she said it was very funny.
It's
And then,
cool.
yeah.
I always want to see what a band like that does to maintain the interest, because we saw Electric Six. They played in Ipswich a few weeks ago, and it was a good show. But they were like competent rock band. It's not really my thing, so I don't think anyone listening would kind of think bad of me for kind of saying they were a competent rock band. But they chucked in their hits quite early on in the set, and I was like, that's a bold move. They've got 17 albums, and I think there's basically Gay Bar and Danger Danger are the two songs that everybody knows. So chucking them early into the set, but they put on a good show and they're entertaining. But it'd be interesting, sort of Thumposaurus. Yeah, you can have that initial big thing, that initial viral hit, but how on earth do you keep up that energy? How do you keep doing it? Because you've got bands like OK Go, who made the video on the running machines.
Yeah.
And then the next video they made one of those machines where you drop a marble and it goes through loads of shit.
Great videos. I can't remember anything about the music.
No, that is a very good point. But incredibly expensive videos. But how many albums? They must sell albums because you wouldn't have the money to make the videos. But that Thumposaurus video is really, really good. And that is not a cheaply made video. I'm just looking at the way it's made and the way it's shot, even the way it's edited. That's cost a lot of money. So somebody's got a lot of faith in it, or they are trustafarians with a sense of humour. Trustafarians, just to be very, very clear on what I said there. Should we have my riff of the week?
Go for it.
It's got no arse cheeks in it. Well, it kind of has, actually, and you'll see why in a minute.
Too many chilies then.
Pardon? Too many chilies.
Yeah.
Can I see? We haven't seen your for the YouTube viewers. We haven't seen your death metal vocalist face for a little while. Can we revisit
I
that?
don't know what my...
It was like.
Maybe it will come out later. I can't think of this.
I'm
It's more
not
like-
a performing ape.
Yeah. It's more
So
like there was a gorilla. It's what is it? It's pretty meaty.
We're seeing them. We're seeing them in Helsinki next week.
Oh, that's fun. Who are
Hopefully
they?
seeing them. Putrid defecation.
Putrid.
Now, so there is an arse cheek connection there. The song is impending anal leakage. So there you go. There's a putrid defecation with impending anal leakage. Do you get booked on the strength of the name because this is Deathfest, or do you actually like?
It must be.
Do they actually check the quality? Because I've got to say the production on that's really good, and the video is vile.
I'm sorry, Andrew. They're the Friday night band.
Oh, we're going on Saturday, are we?
Yeah.
Oh no, we doxed ourselves. All our fans might turn up to Deathfest in Helsinki and ask us to stop making the podcast.
There's
Who are we seeing on Saturday then?
We're seeing it's headlined by Skeletal Remains,
Oh, cool. Know them.
Pertinence, Rippiguolo,
Nope.
which is their legendary sort of early Finnish death metal band, the first one to start doing the vocals in Finnish. Like anybody knew the fucking difference.
That's like going back to ENT's vocals being too political for them to be played on Radio 1.
Proscription, who I think at the moment are my second favourite to see after Skeletal Remains. But the best name, Blood-Soaked Necrovoid.
Yeah, I do like a Necrovoid. This is what polyfiller was invented for.
Yeah. Inferior, Dead Chasm, Bashed, which is a good... I quite like Bashed.
Bashed, just bashed.
Yeah, just Bashed. Azathoth.
That sounds a bit more sort of black metal.
Yeah, I think they might be. Extinguished. And then
how many bands are playing? How many? Is there more than one stage?
There's 2 stages, yeah. And they sort of go like that.
Oh, I find that exhausting when there's 2 stages side by side. So you never know when to piss. One band finishes, the next one starts. You're like hopping foot to foot.
Well, one of the nice things is that there's one of those brewery bars right next to the who do my favorite. I'd say my favorite go-to IPA in Helsinki.
Cool. I'm looking forward to having Long Drink when I come to Helsinki next week. Just doesn't exist here, and people in the UK or anyone not in anyone listening who's not in Finland, which is bound to be like everyone. Long Drink's kind of like G&T, but without that sort of slightly bitterness. It's just lovely.
It's grapefruit and gin, and it is basically an alcohol pop, but it's like an adult alcohol pop in a way.
Instead of the childlike, God, you could buy milk alco pops. It was like the peak of alco pop in the 90s. There was milk. Who looks at milk and thinks, "Yeah, I want to get pissed"? Right.
I need my calcium, but I still need to get shit faced.
Oh man! Right. So our topic this week was chosen by you, Dr. Sam. What is it?
Oh,
God, you looked really blank then. Like, what did I say?
It is bands who made films rather than bands in films. Was it bands who were important part of the making of the film rather than documentaries? Because where do you start with that?
Well, we did the last 2 episodes with Jago. We did biopics, best and worst biopics, and then we did best and worst documentaries. So,
but I mean, this is what I mean. The bands have to be actively involved in it rather than sort of biopics. Yeah, with documentaries are just talking heads. Oh my God, they're so good. Oh.
That's why I thought bands who made films it makes the perfect trifecta. It's kind of all angles covered. So, did you know that what we'd done in the last 2 episodes when you chose this?
No, I didn't. I haven't had any time to myself until this week
because of the top secret metal foundation work.
No, because I'm a parent of a 4-year-old.
Parent of 4, you don't have time to think. No, anything else.
No, parent of a 4-year-old. So love him to bits, but like, be nice to be able to do something else.
That sums up parenting quite well. Love them to bits, but fucking hell. Right.
It's the point where you just sort of like, you give them cocoa. He's really excited to get some Cocoa Pops. Okay, do you want chocolate milk with that? Because then I'll just pour some milk in. No, then you pour the milk and he goes, yeah. You pour the milk and he starts crying.
What?
That's how cereal works. Fuck's sake.
I mean, we don't know how magnets work, but that's how cereal works.
To be fair to him, he's probably he's still discovering how cereal works compared to Insane Clown Posse, who actually, hopefully, by this point now, to use a search engine on their phone.
Oh man! Was this while you were in the UK? Did you get in the little like travel box things, or was it like a full-on box?
No, we were going through a supermarket and he decided he wanted Cocoa Pops. So we went, well, you don't normally eat breakfast, so we're happy if you'll eat something. And then, he's like, yeah, it's just
My,
4-year-olds and food drive me up the fucking wall.
well, I'm now. Well, my child is 12 years old, and sometimes your kids do something that makes you cross, but you're also kind of impressed and get the way they're thinking. She working at home, obviously, because she's not old enough to be left alone, and she'd demolish the pantry. She'd just eat everything. I think, bless her. But I was working, and my glamorous Beat Motel Studio 2, which obviously avid watchers and listeners will be fully familiar with. The fridge is basically about 1.5 meters behind my head, and I was working. I was in a meeting, and I just heard this and I turned around, and she was mopping the floor. And like, what happened? She said, "Oh, there was a hole in the cereal," and I was just like, in my head, trying to go, "There's a hole in this. What were you trying to do?" Because who knows? But what she'd done, rather than dirty a bowl, she just opened with a little travel pack of cereal and just poured the milk in, and then was horribly disappointed when it all fucking fell out the bottom. And I was like, well, she was clearing it up, to be fair, and that's a real payback thing. So when your child at 4 makes a mess, they sure as hell aren't going to clear it up, are they? But at 12, you're like, okay, well, the first I've known about this is the shitty job you're doing of trying to clear it up, which I'll go back over afterwards.
The thing about a 4-year-old clearing, it probably be less to do, because the thing about a 4-year-old clearing up their own mess is they tend to spread it.
Make it worse, yeah.
Yeah. Oh, that was just a small spot, and now it's the entire sofa.
you spilt some milk. Now we need a new 3-piece suite and a floor.
Or he'll go, oh, I need to wipe my hands on. Daddy, where are you?
I don't know, the wall will do.
The wall, yeah.
The wall
it's mostly the sofa, actually. The sofa or the sheepskin, and you just get matted in the hair.
Do you know, I said when you told me you're going to become a parent, I said the same thing I say to all people who are going to become parents. I will not give you advice. But in retrospect, buy a sacrificial settee. Buy one that you're just going to have from like baby until teenage, and just accept it's going to get destroyed. Just be fine with that.
I think, yeah.
Can we have your first choice?
Sure.
Let's have bands who made films. Dr. Sam's choice, number 1. I thought I'd try that out. I don't think it worked.
I've had a red light off the wrist without me even getting kissed. It still seems so unreal. I've seen the morning in the mountains of Alaska. I've seen the sunset in the east and in the west. I've sang the glory that was Rome and passed the hound dog singers home. It still seems for the best, and I'm far, far away.
What a good God!
Fucking
the
brilliant
songs.
Voice.
Sorry, who was it? And then we'll talk about it.
That was the Slades with "Far, Far Away" from the soundtrack to the film Slade and Flame.
So I was going to say, can't really call Slade underrated. I mean, in the UK at least, in the 70s, very much rated. You know, huge band. It just reminded that a friend of a friend is in a band in London called Slady. Have you heard them? So it's an all-female Slade tribute band.
Yeah, they played Brighton a few times.
Oh, really?
My friend loves going to see them as a yearly treat.
They're really, really good, apparently. So I don't know anything about Slade in film. I know rumours that they made a film that had to be. Well, the joke is that their film had to be subtitled for the US release because no one can understand the West Bromwich. Are they from West Bromwich, or they're Midlands anyway, aren't they?
Midlands, yeah. Quite strong accents. Yeah, so they made In Flame. It is at the height of their sort of original. I'd say like their second iteration in a weird way, because they'd given up on the skinhead thing, and then they'd hit big, and then they made Slade and Flame, which is not what I think a lot of people were expecting. They were expecting this sort of rollicking, fun rock and roll thing, and it was actually about how sort of the vanity of success destroys the connections that keep that sort of made those musicians come together. and I have only seen it once. It was very enjoyable. The soundtrack is one of the best soundtracks, I think, to a film ever made. At least like a soundtrack that involves songs in it, that rather than one based on atmospherics. The songs are, like Far, Far Away is just fucking
That's
brilliant song.
just a brilliant song. I want to see it. I mean, you can get it. It was released for the first time on DVD in 2007. So just when DVDs were dying out, they decided to bring it out on DVD.
But this is the truth of the fame of Slade, is because they were incredibly big in the 70s. They had quite a lot of success, I think, in America in the 80s, and they continue to play to quite big crowds. Under what's he called, Dave. The guy with the haircut who inspired the Ramones.
The guy with the haircut.
What's he called? Who's the only original member still in Slade. But he has the blessing to use the name from Noddy Holder.
We're still using it now.
Yeah, but he has the blessing, apparently.
But
they're playing Helsinki next month.
Do you know?
Will I go and see them? No.
How do I not know more about Slade? I mean, you can't. I grew up in the 70s and 80s, arguably still trying to grow up now, but they were so ubiquitous. They were like Tupperware. Yeah, they were absolutely everywhere.
And by the time I came around, and then my consciousness came around, I should say, in the 90s, all they were known for was a Christmas song, and they remained only known for that in the UK. They've sort of those. I think in a weird way, if they're known in places like America or Europe, if they're known with a much more detail to their legacy. In the UK, they're just known as Dave Hill is the guy who also inspired the Ramones haircut.
It's interesting. They sort of Slade popped back up in popularity when influential people talk about them. So they rose up a bit again in the late 90s, possibly early 2000s, when Oasis covered "Feel the Noise."
Come and bring the noise.
Whichever it was, yeah. And then people sort of looked back and went, "Do you know what? Slade were really, really good." You're talking about how big they are. I'm just trying to do some quick maths here. And when the film came out, it says on Wikipedia the box office gross was £1 million. I thought, God, that's really bad. But if you take inflation into account, that's actually a £10 million box office. £10 million box office in a country that at the time had something like 40 million people living in it. That's huge. That's probably like bigger than the Spice Girls film or whatever, comparatively. So, yeah, but I need to know more about Slade. I don't know why they split up. I literally know nothing about them at all. Other than Noddy Holder pops up quite a lot on Six Music because he's still playing, and Mark Radcliffe, who's a long-time BBC presenter now on Six Music, is his drummer. So he does pop up and always sounds like a thoroughly grounded, nice, wonderful person.
Well, he plays and he doesn't play. He doesn't do any sort of Slade stuff. He doesn't do heavy touring. He doesn't do, he does sort of talks with Slade songs. And he tried to get into acting after. He just said he had it, he had his fill. He wasn't interested in doing anything after that. And, it's that's the impression I got. And I would recommend reading his autobiography because it's got a great story. The thing that stands out to me is a story about him. He was friends with Ozzy Osbourne, and they went to see Iron Maiden one night, and Ozzy Osbourne insisted that they dress up as things. So Ozzy Osbourne went as a pink fairy.
Right.
After an entire day in the pub.
So what did Noddy Holder go dressed as?
I can't remember what Noddy Holder got.
Oh, you let us down.
Yeah, sorry. You have to read the book.
Right, so the film, right, I'm going to start putting a score here. I'm going to do a ding, film I want to see. Yeah. So for my choices, you need to give me a ding or a for whether you would actually watch the film. So yes, I want to see Slade flaming. Slade in flame. Flaming Slade.
I want to see Flaming Slade as well again. I would watch that again.
Cool, right. Well, here's my first choice. I can see myself on your monitor again. Do I have a guess who that was? Oh, Sam's gone. He's just had enough. That was too much.
Was that the erogenous void?
The the erogenous void. It's not as good as the what was the void we were talking about earlier?
Necrovoid.
Necrovoid. No, that overblown sack of shit was the Monkees.
Oh, I've never seen that one.
So they made a film called Head, and that track is Pauper Song, which when I was a teenager, I loved that song. I absolutely loved it. But it would be a bit like really enjoying Shandy Bass if you'd never actually had a really nice pint of beer. It's like such a mild version. And that I chose that bit because it builds in a complete Beatles kind of way. And this is quite early. Late, sort of mid to late 60s, and then just wastes it, just absolutely wastes that build up by doing a stupid jangly bag of nonsense. They've made this film called Head, which I don't know if they're trying to be edgy or kind of like cool, but it's a load of nonsense. So you've not seen it. So it came out in 1968.
What's the story?
The story is that a manufactured band saw other bands making loads of money from making films, so they wanted to put out a film themselves, and at the same time choosing that moment to show that they were more than just wacky TV stars. Because growing up in the UK, Monkeys TV program was on every school holiday.
They have some great tunes.
They did have some great tunes, but the film is an absolute sack of shit. They really trying to prove how psychedelic they are and really missing the mark. Well, who knows? It probably wasn't them, was it? It was the producers or whoever. So there's like a really weird scene where they get sucked off, hoovered up by a massive vacuum cleaner. It doesn't. We watched it a lot as teenagers, just trying to decode it and just sort of trying to figure out what the hell it was about. But looking back on it now, it's just a load of nonsense. Oh my God. I said about Slade in the UK, tiny country, Slade's box office opening or whatever was £1 million, which I said equates to 10 million or whatever. Very respectful. The Monkees film cost $750,000 to make in 1968. So a lot of money. Do you want to just have a guess at the box office?
Shitloads.
$16,000. 16,000. That's surely a country as big as America. $16,000 at the box office is people buying a ticket and accidentally wandering into the wrong room, or the ticket seller being confused and accidentally. It's like in the 90s, a supermodel, Naomi, somebody, British supermodel, made an album and it famously sold 104 copies when it was released. On a major label with £1 million marketing budget, but that's shocking. $16,000. That's what a massive loss. So in the film they were trying to prove that they were serious musicians, because they were. All four people in the Monkees were good musicians in their own right, and it's a bit like the George Harrison Beatles argument. They may have had careers if outside of the group, if they hadn't have joined it. But if one of them hadn't joined, wasn't it Marilyn Manson tried to join the Monkees? No.
That's a good level of internet rumor.
No, it's not. The other Manson, Charles Manson.
Do you know, what was it? Do you remember, what was that, the rumor that was always around Marilyn Manson being the kid from the Wonder Years?
Yeah. which, because he's
I
a
mean,
genius.
I cannot believe that series ends up with that kid removing his own ribs to suck his cock.
that removing a rib thing is just, it just comes round on a loop. Just every few years for somebody different. There was probably people in biblical times going, Judas removed one of his own ribs.
Who would it be today?
Harry Styles.
Harry Styles. Get your daughter when the school term starts again because it's the thing you pass down. This is what you pass down to your children.
Well, it's that and the Batman and Robin in the Batmobile. That rhyme, although that has evolved very slightly. I think they just lost a wheel when I was a kid, but nowadays there's like genital discourtesies happening and all sorts.
Genital discourtesies.
So, Head by the Monkees. Is that a must see or is it a never see for you?
I would watch it, I think, out of curiosity now, because there's also something that must have driven you back to it when you were a teenager to have watched it a few times.
It was just because it was so bloody weird, and we'd got really into the Doors, so like we knew that drugs were a thing, but at the same time, none of us had any interest in actually doing drugs or any method of getting hold of any drugs for that matter. So we just got really into like overtly psychedelic things. And to be fair, things like Head did lead us towards some of the good psychedelic stuff like Love and some of the decent.
You're saying it's a gateway drug like aspirin.
It's like it's like those chewy vitamin C things, and then you discover codeine and alcohol. Oh man, this is going off track. So anyway, let's move on from the Monkees. Head. Do you reckon they're like, let's call it Head? Oh man, what a shit film. Right, here's your next choice.
Beat on the brat, beat on the brat, beat on the brat with a baseball bat. Oh yeah, oh yeah, oh. Oh yeah, oh yeah, oh. Hey, 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 hey.
It's not often we get to play the whole... Oh shit, it was so short that it caught me out when I clipped it and it just started again. I literally like pressed record, turned around because we give everything 30 seconds, turned around, it finished, and I turned around, it was starting again. Who was that?
That was Weird Al with Beat on the Brat, cover of the famous Ramones song, and I genuinely hope that upsets someone who listens to us, because if it did, they take themselves and the Ramones far too seriously. But he has actually produced 2 films.
2?
Yeah, he has done, most recently, the biopic Weird, the Al Yankovic story.
Oh, I've not seen it. I really, really want to see it. Can't get it. There's no way to get it in the UK that I know of.
Sorry, I've just read the whole of the film UHF, released internationally as Vidiot from UHF.
What? VHF? No, I think I've heard this. Weird Al VHF. UHF.
Ultra high frequency is what it's. And I watched that film a few times with my old flatmate Andy.
1989 it came out.
Yeah, he's been going for a long time. I would recommend watching both of them. The Weird Al Yankovic story is a lot of fun.
I really, really want to see it because I love it. When it came out, all the marketing around it and all the conversation and all the press was focused on it being completely factual.
Yes. Yeah.
To the extent that Emma, my wife, was talking about it a few days ago, and she said, didn't Weird Al have an affair with Madonna? And I was like, I'm pretty sure that's just one of the complete lies that's in the Weird Al film.
Yes.
But
yes.
I really want to see it. But just look.
I have to say, I have a great fondness for Daniel Radcliffe's, sort of post Harry Potter life, because he basically seems to have gone, I have made shitloads of money. I have, an acting career, I could either take myself incredibly seriously or just amuse myself. And I'm just going to amuse myself.
He did some. He's done some really, really clever things. I always think I can never tell if someone's smart or they've just got really good management. It could be a mix of both, because you have to be smart to choose the right management. But one of the first things he did after Harry Potter was Equus, which is a stage show where he got his lad out and murders a horse, which clearly I'm not in favour of in any. Well, it's art and all that, but
Did he murder the horse with his lad?
I've not seen it, so I can't vouch for whether he used a full-on robot chubby to off a horse.
He was also in 2016 film Swiss Army Man.
I was about to mention that film.
Paul Dano, and he plays a dead person.
Have you seen it?
It's great.
It's surprisingly brilliant.
Yeah.
I thought it was another case of, it's just being weird for the sake of being weird. But shit, I cried during that film. It genuinely, it completely took me by surprise. It is one of the darkest black humours I think I've ever seen. Absolutely remarkable film. So yeah, now he's in the position he can do what the fuck he wants. Good on him.
Yeah. Exactly.
Well done,
and the music also, if you have a sense of humour about, sort of, if you like pastiche, songs about eating too much and stuff like that, it features a lot of the Weird Al Yankovic hits. And so it's just a joyous sort of send up of himself.
It's kind of genius and makes a lot of sense that someone who's made a long career, his albums go platinum. He's made a long career out of doing pastiches, that when the biopic comes out, that as well as a pastiche. That's just absolutely brilliant. We both saw him at ATP, didn't we? And we had the flu.
He was fantastic,
and he was absolutely brilliant. And it was we've talked about this before.
Godspeed You Black Emperor. He was he was the little bit of light.
He was the light relief for a whole weekend
in the necrovoid of darkness. The anal necrovoid.
Godspeed anal leakage necrovoid.
Godspeed anal leakage.
Oh man, right, let's go on to my next choice, which is this. Oh, do I have a guess who that was?
Nice bit of
lovely bit of Hammond. Isn't it?
Yeah, I like a nice bit of ham, fat ham.
Do I have a guess who it was?
No, I mean my guess again. I don't know. Pink Floyd, because always.
It was Pink Floyd this time.
Which one?
And it's from. Oh, the song is called Echoes, Part 1, and it's from Live at Pompeii. Now, when I look at the stats of. We're now on episode, I think, 94, 95 of Beat Motel. Excuse me. When I look at the stats of how popular each episode is, the episode that I did with Simon from These Are End Times about Life in Pompeii is so much more popular than anything else we've ever done. But I chose it for this because I'd never really got Pink Floyd and never been terribly interested until I found this 4K transfer, I guess you'd call it, on YouTube of Live in Pompeii. And the musicianship's bloody great. And it's a band who weren't huge at the time. They were doing well. They're doing okay. But after Syd Barrett was hoofed out or just stopped turning up, they'd kind of lost their way a bit. And they'd done some soundtrack stuff, which is all right. But they basically got some funding to go from the Arts Council type thing to go and make a film, which they did very painfully and very slowly. But I'm not going to talk about Pink Floyd Live in Pompeii much because it's something that we've done at length on the previous episode, so I recommend going listening to that. But if you think Pink Floyd's a load of poncy nonsense, the film might change your mind. As a thing to watch, it's joyous. And one of the other things that changed my mind is the huge homage Beastie Boys did to it. I nearly chose Beastie Boys for this. Have you seen the documentary that they did? It's
Yeah, it's
absolutely
really
brilliant.
good. It's
But
weird.
I didn't choose it because it's basically a stage show that they've recorded. I thought that doesn't count as a film.
Well, what I'm going to suggest next, actually giving an idea for the next episode, would be the mini films that turn into music videos,
Ooh.
like Michael Jackson Thriller sort of thing.
I nearly chose that actually, but God, that's going to be interesting. Right, okay, good one for next time. But for this one, bands who made films, we're going to move on from Pink Floyd, and we're going to go to a band who I am always cheered to see on any list and always make me smile because they sound like this. I just, who is that, Sam? Tell us who it was.
That was Guitar Wolf with the song Wild Zero, and the film's called Wild Zero as well. And I've seen Guitar Wolf live. That is pretty much what they sounded like, except the drums weren't as bad.
I admire their commitment to just sound so bad. That recording process is spending a lot of time in a studio and sitting there and listening to the same tracks over and over again, and having the tolerance to listen to something that acerbic is absolutely brilliant. I can remember I got sent a Guitar Wolf retrospective when I was doing Beat Motel as a paper zine, and I can remember just hearing it and just going, "Is this broken?" It's like, what's happened here? Because it was a retrospective, it was loads of tracks across loads of different albums that all sounded like that, basically. Have you seen the film? Oh, so
No.
it's a sci-fi horror film.
I chose it. Yeah, I chose it because I felt like you can go two ways with these sort of lists. You can go the Beatles and you can go the Ramones, which is quite a fun film in itself. Or you can go, this is an obscure thing that's really cool that they did it because they are a band who probably didn't have to be as lo-fi as they are, or don't have to be as lo-fi as they are, but they're so determinedly lo-fi. I think I've seen bits and pieces of it when the Punker Bunker was still around in Brighton, but as occasionally we'd just sort of be watching something on TV when you went down there. And I think one day it was Guitar Wolf, Wild Zero. And it just seemed odd.
I love so much about Guitar Wolf. I just like the fact they exist. I'd never listen to them. I would never recommend them to anyone. Yeah. They're just like, I'm just pleased they exist. I'm just pleased. And what's the singer called? He's got a really cool name, like Hero Wolf or something. Well, actually, his name, I can't say his name without sounding incredibly ignorant and Western, but it's spelled Seiji. CJ?
They're the sort of band that I would recommend teenagers listen to because I think it's too late for me to get into them, but someone needs to keep their flame alive. And they need to, how cool would the generation of teenagers be if Guitar Wolf was something that they put on a massive pedestal?
We do need a bit more noisiness. Things are all getting a bit nice. There's a theory banded about by good friends of mine, actually. The music scene in Woodbridge now, only posh people who can be bankrolled by their parents can afford to be in bands and actually tour and stuff, which sadly may well be true. Their names.
Well, also, I think that digital ability to sort of clip everything, to overproduce everything. I think, bring back the bum mode.
Oh, there's an episode which I've got on the list of ideas called "Was That Bit a Mistake?" And I think I'm looking forward to doing that one because we'll talk about that kind of thing. Can I just list the band members in Guitar Wolf? There is Guitar Wolf, Bass Wolf, and Drum Wolf. This is neat and tidy, I think. I like that. I would absolutely watch the film, so I'm going to give this a ding for would watch the film, because it's a Japanese noise punk thing making lo-fi sci-fi horror. Why wouldn't I watch that?
What could be bad
Exactly.
about that?
I don't see anything wrong. You didn't give us a ding or a no for a Pink Floyd live in Pompeii.
Oh, I don't know. I've never got Pink Floyd, so I might just go
fair
no.
enough. But it's not no. It's. I really didn't think you'd do that. Thank you for committing. Right. So here is my next choice. Anyway, you've mentioned my last choices as ones not to choose, but here's my second to last.
No, it's not. Not to choose. Just there is, because my next choice is sort of basically the same thing as the Beatles, a modern day Beatles doing film.
Okay, here's my second to last choice. If you're listening to that and you don't know who that band is, just fuck off and listen to something else. Is that harsh? Is that a bit much?
No, that's fair. That's fair. If the Beatles at this point are like the Ramones, but not as good.
That's just the quote. That summarizes the attitude for like so much of the Beat Motel podcast. But so the film, that song is Rock and Roll High School, from the film Rock and Roll High School, which now I come to think of it, I have no idea how that ever got made.
No, I looked into a lot of like articles that were around the Ramones at the time in the UK, where they were quite big. But in America, they were continuously hyped in the media. Okay. They were on a major label. They were on a fairly big label,
same label as Against Me. Yeah,
Sire. But a very different time. And they were continuously hyped, and there was so much excitement around them, and it's just sort of this mystery that they never were. They just never got to that point where everybody who liked the Ramones loved them, but no one could figure out why they couldn't get beyond that group of people.
And they really tried, because the Ramones are fascinating, and I need to read a good book about the Ramones. So if anyone listening to this can recommend a good biography of the Ramones, I absolutely want to know about them, because they're intriguing to me for so many ways, and I've never really considered that. But a lot of hype, and to the extent like Phil Spector produced an album at a point where Phil Spector probably would have been not quite at his peak, but he wouldn't have done it for half a pack of Rothams and a hand shandy, would he? Yeah, it would have been. There's money being thrown at them, and the film isn't about them, but it is a vehicle for the Ramones. It is a promotional thing, and always known who the Ramones were, of course, but never really got that affection that people have towards them until I saw Rock and Roll High School, because I've always liked that American high school film, because just growing up when I did Grease and whatever else, it always seemed so magical, American high schools, and I think that's why the Netflix series Sex Education is such fucking genius, because it's pulling on a lot of those tropes whilst being very, very British in its humor. But the film, I don't know how much it took, but the budget was $200,000, which in 1979 was nothing for making a film. That's piss cheap. That's even cheaper than the Slade film. That's almost nothing. So I get the feeling that they made the film, but no one really wanted to spend any money on it just in case.
No, it's like and it's one of those ones that sort of. Well, I mean, a lot of these films have sort of become sort of B-roll sort of stuff. They're not classics by any stretch of the imagination, but if you enjoy music, they are incredibly enjoyable to sort of partake in and just sort of witness the sort of the insanity that someone actually put money behind this idea. Look, and there's so many actors who want to be musicians. Johnny Depp and who's that guy? 30 Seconds to Mars.
Oh, and then Keanu Reeves. Although I would probably get in a fight over someone calling Keanu Reeves a horrible person. Literally.
No, but it's just like, and he chose to be a bass player as well, which is nice. But there's so much, and actually, every time there is sort of a punk thing, there's a punk movie made, and it doesn't involve actually anybody from a punk scene. Like Jim Jarmusch can carry it off because he's a punk. He was involved in that punk scene. He is. Yeah. I'm not talking to you anymore.
All right, so other satellite people who were really into punk but weren't in punk bands but massively supported it and championed it. John Belushi. I discovered most of these things like Rock and Roll High School through a guy called Wolfie who was in a band called The Stupids, who did a probably my favourite ever zine called Real Overdose. And we used to go around to his house and drink beer, and he had the most. This is pre-internet, kind of. The internet did exist, but not like it does now. And he just had like the coolest collection of VHS tapes. And he'd just go, "Oh, watch this," and it'd be like a clip that somebody had sent him through the zine scene from America of John Belushi introducing, I don't know, fucking Bad Brains on Saturday Night Live or something. And it's just like, that's so cool, so unbelievably brilliant. Yeah, John Belushi was massively in
the I just want to shout out. There's also the Clash film, the Rude Boy, which is it's not a great film, but it's quite enjoyable. What I'm getting
from this is that our minimal level, our bar of acceptance is set very low. We all basically like anything. Are they holding guitars? Yeah, smart. We're off.
Yeah, I will also. It's part fiction, part documentary. Tells the story of Ray Gange, a young Clash fan who leaves his dead-end job in a sleazy Soho sex shop to become a roadie for the band. The film also includes extensive footage of the Clash at Rock Against Racism in Victoria.
Oh, wow, really?
Which is quite famous footage at this point. The Clash, Mick Jones, Joe Strummer and Paul Simonon were also in King of Comedy. And in the late 80s, I only mention this now, in the mid-80s, late 80s, Joe Strummer tried to become an actor.
I remember him popping up in things.
When he was he was a bit of a soap at that point.
That's a word that doesn't get used very often.
You can tell I've been hanging out with my mum.
I love your mum. She's brilliant. my vocabulary increases each time I spend time with your mother. He started popping up in films. Channel 4, late 80s, early 90s. Channel 4, I don't know if they funded a lot of films, but if you waited past midnight on like a Thursday, there'd quite often be a short British-made indie film. And I can remember Joe Strummer popping up in some of them. Generally, he'd be playing guitar and being Joe Strummer, but that always interested me. Well, you've triggered a memory from mentioning that, because I did.
He's in an Aki Kaurismäki film. Fucking hell, I didn't know that.
That is. Who's Jim?
Aki Kaurismäki is like the is sort of the Finnish director.
Oh, Jim Jarmusch. I know who that is now. Sorry, I had to look it up.
Yes, the feature film features a cameo appearance. He's in a film by Aki Kaurismäki called "I Hired a Contract Killer." It is a Finnish, British, German, Swedish co-production, and the film features a cameo appearance by Joe Strummer as a guitar player. Even though that's probably the last thing he really
I can still remember him dying. It's still shit. Another thing, the memory that you've triggered, which I'm asking ChatGPT about, is that I'm pretty sure first album era Suede, I'm pretty sure they made a film. I'm just looking it up, and I think it was called Love and Poison, which I don't think anyone's even mentioned for 25 years. listen to this fascinating podcast of a middle-aged man using ChatGPT.
Well, what the other one is looking up. Where can I watch? I Hired a Contract Killer online.
But yeah, so special mention Clash, special mention Suede.
And is it online? Is it on the? Oh, come on! But it's going to be in. Maybe it's going in English. Oh, yes. I'm gonna.
We're just going to spend when I come visit you next week. We're just going to spend the time watching films because that'd be awesome.
I might watch that. Sanna, my lovely Finnish wife, is it's like if in Finland, if you're educated, you have to like base two things: Aki Kaurismäki and the Moomin. And but Aki Kaurismäki has his summer cabin is somewhere near Sanna's family one. And so they occasionally see him in the alcohol shop. He had a bar. This is a great story about him. Alcohol, which is this government-sanctioned alcohol.
I've always liked just how logical that is. Where do we buy alcohol? Well, there's a shop there called Alcohol. Let's go there. We shall do well. Yeah.
But he had a bar in Helsinki because he wanted somewhere to hang out with his friends that he was a bit, maybe make a bit. And it was too popular. So what they did was they changed it into a communist-era theme bar where apparently the idea was you get sold what they have in stock. You don't get a choice.
That's kind of brilliant. We need to move on to your next choice, which I would have been surprised if you hadn't have chosen. Drums are a bit loud in that, aren't they? Who's that? That?
But then that's only the intro. That's Through the Never by the Metallicas. The Meat Alicas.
The Metal
Meat
Lickers.
And the Alicas. And the Metal Lickers. Yeah. Yes, very good. The Metal Lickers. I like that. And they made an album, like a live album drama thing called Through the Never. I've never seen it. I probably will only watch it if I have a lot of time to kill one night. So I've chosen the last two films. Last two films I've never seen, but I know of them. It does not sound anywhere near as fun as
I probably wouldn't watch that, so I'm going to give that. But you did bring up something I didn't cover. We covered some kind of monster, is it called? And the other with me and Jago in the last couple of episodes. So for one thing, I'm kind of chuffed that there's one that they try and act in it. Do you know?
I don't know. I think they may have done a little bit of acting. James Hetfield, I know, has just the lead singer of the Metallicas is just he's in a series about cowboy or something like that, and he's a moody cowboy. It seems so like lazily cliche.
Like your lack of interest in that, to the point that like your words almost just trail off. Like, fucking.
I feel I have seen Metallica twice. I saw them once for £5 in Wembley Arena, and then I saw them again at what's it called, at Reading, and I don't need to see them again. I don't really care anymore.
It's done.
They're a great band. I'm glad that they continue to have success, and good for them trying to keep doing new music rather than just resting on their laurels, and trying to keep fans interested in their new music, because a lot of bands will just put out albums for themselves rather than actually try to please the people who listen to them. They want to bring people with them, and I quite admire that. It's almost an honest lack of confidence in your own ability to know what's good and bad.
I'm probably going to give this film a we decided during the last couple of episodes there are some films that I'd only watch if I had COVID and couldn't move. Then I'd consider it an okay. That would be the perfect opportunity. It's like, right, I'm going to lay here and worry about shitting myself, or I can watch a semi-dramatization by Metallica. Although that being said, I did sit through the 3.5 hours of them making St. Anger or whatever it was.
I quite like some.
Oh, that's what it is, yeah. But, right, here is my final choice.
It has been a hard day's night. And I have been working like a dog. It's been a hard day's night. I should be sleeping like a log. But when I get home to you, I find the things that you do will make me feel all right. You know I work all day to get you money, to buy you things. And it's worth it just to hear you say, you'll give me everything.
I chose that because every time we use the Beatles on here, it just gets us copyright battered on YouTube in like more than any other band. A lot of bands that we get copyright strikes for, it just says that the audio will be blocked in Belarus. And you go, oh, okay, fair enough. But the Beatles just whoop us every time. So do you want to have a guess who that was giving a rendition of A Hard Day's Night? Yes, it was. Did you heard it before?
I have something familiar about it, yeah.
I can remember when I first saw it as a teenager and just being sort of fascinated by it. Just kind of, because it's obviously so hammy and so daft, and it's done like as a Shakespeare soliloquy. But there's also something just quite wonderful about it. And I don't know what it is, but I chose this because getting into music, and at a time when VHS tapes became affordable, watching A Hard Day's Night as a teenager, I absolutely loved it. Really, really liked it. Not even like necessarily liked the music. I just liked the whole thing of this band. And they're just like having a great old time, and they're just doing a TV show, and then for some reason, Ringo Starr's horribly hungover, wandering along embankment, taking photos of things.
Yeah,
I think they're really interesting. One thing we haven't really touched on is why bands make films. So going through them, I think Slade probably made a film just because they were at their peak, and a film producer went, do you know what, if we chuck a bit of money at this, we'll probably make a few quid. Weird Al probably made a film because he just makes stuff. I don't think he knows how to not make stuff. Guitar Wolf, who gives a shit? I'm just glad it happened. Metallica, again, crap load of money. We don't, we're maxing out sales on t-shirts, vinyl, and James Hetfield.
How do we get more people in to more places?
Yeah,
so we can
exactly. That's exactly how skeptical I'll be about Metallica. The Monkees, fucking hell, they'd had a TV show, so it wasn't that. It's like Star Trek going on to make films. Of course they were going to. It's just what was going to happen. Pink Floyd, that was an art project funded by the Arts Council. The Ramones, as you said, lots of people with a financial investment were just trying to make them famous, and they just never really happened. The Beatles, I just don't know. Being skeptical, I'd say not Epstein. Oh no, it was Brian Epstein, wasn't it? God, the name Epstein has been shit on by the other one, isn't it?
Yeah, what you're overlooking is that rock and roll was, in some ways, spread through the cinema.
Ooh, go on.
Not on the radio waves. Because one of the ways that, when you watch those documentaries about people picking up rock and roll in the UK, they will tell you about the first time they saw something, which was Bill Haley and his Comets doing Rock Around the Clock on a film. Elvis is in shitloads of films.
Fucking Ginger Baker's was in films.
Yeah, and so it's. I think it's, and there are films of like. It was a big thing to get your song into a film. It was one way that it could actually go, stratospheric, and one way of publicizing the musicians. So, and if you needed there was like back in the sort of 50s, if you needed a number, there was a song number. And so it was just another medium to exploit. The Beatles made, how many films did the Beatles make? They made quite a lot of
Well,
films.
let me try and list them. Hard Day's Night, Magical Mystery Tour, Help, Let It Be.
Yellow Submarine?
Yellow Submarine's on Magical Mystery Tour. I nearly chose that, but that film kind of bums me out because, again, we had it on VHS, me and friends, and it's visibly a bunch of 24-year-olds who have lost someone who was really important to them, and they are just lost, and it doesn't make any sense. It's got no, it doesn't work. It doesn't work at all. And I think even at the time, it was people kind of went, "That's not good." One redeeming feature is it's got the Bonzo Dog Doodah band playing the last song, sort of like playing out the thing with Viv Stanshall at his absolute kind of like, I don't want to make assumptions about what chemicals he was consuming at the time, but he's giving a hell of a performance. But yeah, there's a bit I tried to clip. There's a bit where they're dressed as wizards for some fucking reason in like a lab, just going, "Where's the booth? Where's the booth?" Literally, where's the booth? I just when I was a teenager, I just looked and went, "What the hell is this?" But now it just sort of, it just bumps me out a bit. Just like, just a bit.
Fair enough. But like, I think cinema played a very different role as it was another in early rock and roll, and it was a place that you could also take over. And it's not like Elvis or the Beatles were interested in not taking over things. They were certainly marketed as sort of this thing, that was worldwide phenomenon. And that's one way of people being able to see and hear and, witness a band in a sort of personal way that isn't based on the band touring. I mean, Elvis never played beyond, the US.
Well, he did early heavy touring with Johnny Cash and like traveling circus kind of almost thing. I heard something that which I don't know if it's true or not, but if it is, it's really interesting. I took the child to London, my child, to London at the weekend, and we went to Denmark Street. And we actually went twice. We went 2 days in a row because the first day I think she was a bit overwhelmed. Second day she had like specific guitars she wanted to go back and look at. And in Hanks, which is the one right at the end, the one where you walk in and like it's got like Jimmy Page's Les Paul for 90 grand. It's the really nice one. I was listening to the people behind the counter talking, and one of them said, No. What you've got to understand is that until Buddy Holly was playing a song in a film in the mid-50s, no one in Britain had even seen a Stratocaster. And that kind of blew my mind. You think the Stratocaster is so ubiquitous with what a guitar is. You say to someone, draw a guitar, they'll probably draw a Stratocaster. And yet it's Buddy Holly and the Crickets. I've just looked it up. Singing the song "That'll Be the Day" in a film called "The Girl Can't Help It" in 1956. Before then, no one had seen it. No one even knew probably didn't know what an electric guitar was even. Because in America, they had Les Paul, who was kind of a TV personality, as I understand it.
But there you go. I mean, that was sort of a very sort of cinema, because no radio played rock and roll those days, particularly in the UK. So, it took until the 60s. Was Radio Caroline
kind
in
of
the 60s?
Forced it's broadcasting again. It broadcast just off the coast of Ipswich, which is where it always was. But they kind of forced the government's hand, or forced the BBC's hand, going, look, we're stealing. Yeah. You've got the Light programme, which is like half an hour once a week or something. Like, we are stealing all your listeners. And that is kind of how Radio 1 came about in the late 60s. But yeah, because no one else. It's so easy now.
But that's the late 60s. So up until that point, the cinema was just another place rock and roll could go into, because it's a place where they didn't have to rely on already established networks.
God, this is interesting.
Not already established networks, but like really prescribed, because Hollywood's only ever interested in what they can get people to get into.
Speaking of which, we're going to see the new Deadpool film tonight. Right. I think we probably ought to wrap it up there. We are over time, but that's just become the norm. We ought to just say this is an hour and a quarter long, just leave it at that. Anything you want to add before I press the stop button?
Oh,